This is Mehek Bhukari, a 24-year-old TikToker who thought that her fame was enough to get her out of murder. She was living in the UK with her mother and father, who were originally from Pakistan, and they were a Muslim household. However, due to logistical reasons, Mehek ended up graduating from St. Margaret's Ward Catholic Academy, where she went on to study fashion at Newcastle College, moving on to Manchester Metropolitan University. But before she finished her degree, she would drop out of university, because during this time she started blowing up on social media between Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. The highest number of followers is 120,000 on TikTok, and as her fame increased, so did her income. At just 24 years old, Mehek had more money than her own parents did, so she started adding them into her videos. Her mother in particular ended up playing a large part of her internet persona. It was an elite relationship that brought in more brand deals, and so they went from being a lower-class family to one that was never worried about money anymore. She bought a new Audi and would brag about her new luxurious lifestyle. Her TikTok videos were the latest dancers mixed with luxurious lifestyle content. What was blatantly obvious, though, was that Mehek was totally self-absorbed, and it seemed that her mother not only supported her persona, but also engaged in the hype of it. While Mehek was popular, she didn't have very close friends, and her mother filled that gap in her life. However, this also led to her mother being part of a social circle and mingling with a much younger crowd. And in 2019, M's mother and Seren met a 21-year-old named Saqib Hussain. She started flirting online and slowly but surely made some sneaky visits to hotels, bars, and lounges. It seemed like Mehek knew of the affair, and however disapproving she was, it wasn't enough to stop her mother with the lines of motherhood and friend now blurred. This affair would be an on and off roller coaster ride, but after 3 years, it seemed that a 9 ended it for good. Sak was not happy about this. With a bruised ego, broken heart, and an unwillingness to let her go, he begged and pleaded for our attention, and it ultimately led to nothing but more fame for the man who turned to a more threatening approach. Now he was bitter about the relationship. He felt like he wasted thousands of dollars on a 9, and it was time for revenge. He said he would send an husband the very intimate photos he had of her if she didn't return his affections or the money he had now lost. Having a Muslim husband, she knew that the consequences of her actions could have led to something very serious, more than just a divorce, especially within the Muslim community. And so Anine ended up telling her daughter about the threats. However, this is where things got very dark, very quickly, as in desperation Mehek sought out a way to get Saqib's phone. If Saqib had no photos, he had no threat to hold of her mother, and if this got out, not only would this affect her own fame and reputation, but it would also end in the breakdown of her family. So it was not just her mother's problem. So MC reached out to her friend Wrecking Carwin, and the two began to form a plot on how they would corner Saqib and get his phone. Rukin requested the help of other friends, so he had the numbers to carry out the plan. And after getting a group together, the plan was to offer $3,000 that Saqib claimed he had paid while seeing Anarine, and once they were within his reach to corner him, get his phone, and wipe a clean of any evidence of the affair. However, the plan did not go down this way at all. Saqib had wisely asked his friend Hashim to go with him, and when the two got there in the early hours of the morning, at the R time, they saw that there were a bunch of people with ski masks on, and the only 2 cars in the Tesco car park where they were supposed to meet with Mehek. This obviously set off alarm bells, and they decided to leave as quickly as they could, but unfortunately, Ma was not going to let this go, and give chase both. CS followed Saqib, and Hashim Saqib was now in panic and called the police. He was desperately shouting for their help and saying he was going to die. The 2 cars, a blue Seat Leon driven by Rise and an Audi TT with Rek as the driver, had caught up with them and had them boxed in. Hashim drove through red lights trying to escape the threatening situation, but other cars did not let up. But then the very tragic Cool ended up with a hysterical scream from Saqib to Hashim. Send it. Send it. Send it sadly. The blue Sedan had bumped into them trying to ride them off the road. The call then went silent and very emotional. Then a scream before deafening silence. The car with Sak and Hashim had been ridden off the road into a pole, and the car caught a light with Saqib, and Hashim paid with their lives. Mean Company did not even cool in the accident. In fact, they turned around and actually drove past on their way back at El Ir. After 1:30 a.m., a truck saw the car on fire. He blocked off the road with his truck and reported it to the police. In the meantime, the 2 cars had switched drivers, with Mehek taking back her Audi TT and Natasha taking back C. Leon. Then they were caught in CCTV at 2 a.m., where it is presumed they were planning their cover-up story should they need one. Little did Mehek know that there was actually CCTV footage of the parking lot and the road where they were chasing Sakid and Hashim. While confirming the call made the police, and it didn't take long for the police to trace the blue seat Leon registered to Natasha the next day. The police waited for Natasha to leave in her car, boxed her in at a petrol station. Before the police could get to her, Natasha had placed a call to Raisa to warn him Rise was calling Mehek, but never got through, and so at 8 a.m., the police arrived to Mehek and Anne's home, and while addressing the men in the home, Mehek saw the missed calls and called Ree back, and then quickly messaged her mother, who was in the same room, to let her know what she needed to say, as lie after lie spilled from Mehek's lips. The police did not buy itself single word. M claimed she had a social media rent in knowing, where were you? Where was that? So we stayed here and then we went straight to. Right, okay, in the Audi. Yes, right. So the police brought both her mother and daughter to the Leicester police station where they were arrested and questioned. M was then caught off guard once the police played the call to her, and then she broke down in tears as her plan fell apart. Even after being caught, she accused the deceased Sakid of being manipulative and a liar, taking no responsibility for her part in his death. Out of all of those involved, only Mohammed Patel went into the police station himself and told the police the full story step by step of what actually happened that night, including the decision to ram Sakid and Hashim, offered the road in a conversation between Raiz and Rakin on the phone. While they were in the chase, this would be important. As it revealed intent, Mohammed Patel was cleared of all charges, while the rest were all caught and arrested on August 4223, 18 months later. Macy and her mother were found guilty of 2 counts of murder. The drivers were also found guilty of murder, while Natasha and the friends were charged with 2 counts of manslaughter. And whilst this was pretty brutal, most of it took place off screen, but the next victim wasn't as privileged. 911. What is the location of your emergency? 4748. France Court, is this a police or medical? My boy is dead. Okay, stand the line for the fire department, do not hang up. Sorry, Rose, tell me exactly what happened there. My boyf and I were playing last night and I put him in his case and we were playing like kind of hide and seek kind of thing. So I fell asleep and I woke up and he was dead in the suitcase. So I don't know what happened. Okay, is he hanging from somewhere or what? Mom? No. I pulled him out of the suit cage. He was in a suitcase. Yes. And I fell asleep. Right, is he breathing? No, I need you to get him on the floor, flatten his back for me. Okay, I did. I tried giving him CPR. Yeah, okay, listen to me. Let him flat his, okay, listen to me. I want you to let him flat on his back for me on the floor. I did, okay, he's stiff and purple. Okay, man, that's fine. We're still gonna do compression to him. Okay, place the heel of your hand on his breastbone, right in center of the chest. Yes, put your other hand on top of that hand. You can tell, okay, please. Okay, he just gurgled. This was a call from 42-year-old TikToker Sarab Boone and her then boyfriend George Torres Jr., who got caught in a situation where her boyfriend was stuck in a suitcase after a drunk night. On February 24, 2020, the next morning, Sarah Boone called 911 to report that her boyfriend was dead. Sarah claimed to have nothing to do with the death. She and George got drunk on wine the night before. They thought it was a good idea to play hide and seek. And during their game, George tried to hide in her suitcase as she zipped it up, according to Sarah, in her drunken state. She completely forgot about George and the game went upstairs and then fell asleep. This left George in a death trap suitcase where he eventually succumbed to suffocation and died in the suitcase. When Sarah woke up, she couldn't find George, and after a brief look around, she vaguely remembered the game opened the bag and found his dead body. This is, of course, according to how Sarah tells the story, but after a deeper investigation, the story of what actually happened unfolded. Out herself, it was a love-hate relationship that was clearly toxic. The story that she fed the police was so unbelievable and had so many flaws. So there was no surprise that the police's frowns led to some investigations, and what they found only confirmed their suspicions because, believe it or not, Sarah was not even arrested the day she reported George's death. The reality is that she truly saw it as a drunken night ending in a fatal mistake. She felt that she didn't need to be accountable for this. Around the same time this TikTok video went viral, or thousands of people thought it was just a funny prank on her boyfriend. This was actually torture for the man inside, and his last terrifying moment alive. This TikTok, of course, belonged to Sarah, and police found the footage of George asking, or rather begging, to be let out, while Sarah sat back saying, "For everything you have done to me, for everything you've done to me, Sarah, for everything you've done to me. Sarah, you, Sarah, underscore, you Sarah, stupid. Sarah, that's my name, don't wear it up, I can't, underscore, breathe babe, is he. Yeah, that's when you choke me. Sarah, music. Sarah, SS. Sarah, I can't breathe. Bab, that's on you. Sarah, I can't breathe, it's on you. SAR, reel around some, I want to get video for it. Extra, I got this SAR. Reg, I can't breathe, Ab. Oh, that's what I feel like when you drink on me. Sarah, yeah, you probably shut the... Upsar. However, the police asked her to come to the station for some follow-up questions, and this is when they searched her phone and found the footage that Sarah claimed she didn't remember taking the interrogation. Sarah was not TI, and talks actually about how they were working on their problems in their relationship, and that it made her happy that they were facing things together. She describes that particular day as a good one. She only breaks down when she says she misses him. Sarah explains that they were together too much and that she wanted space. She also tells the police that George's ex-wife was a monster and that he battled to get to speak to his daughter when asked about the timeline of the events that evening. Sarah said they had done a puzzle and then listened to music, and then around 8 p.m. they started to play hide and seek. She also says they were running out of places to hide. She said they had the suitcase out because they were intending to donate clothes, and Sarah admits that she only had access to her phone with facial recognition and a password. The police then ask if she remembers taking a video, and Sarah says no. So then they show the video. Even though Sarah says she didn't want to watch it and is not really sure of how much more she could take, the police explain they can take the video as it is, but it's an opportunity for her to explain. At this point, the video is pretty damning evidence, and after telling her that they even have footage of her flipping the suitcase over, but George continuing to tell her that he can't breathe. Sarah then told the police that watching this is killing her inside. They addressed the fact that there is no hole for him to breathe, as Sarah previously claimed that there was. So Sarah immediately defends herself, saying that she is not malicious, but the video shows us saying F you and the police stop her, saying that she was laughing at him in the suitcase and swearing at him is malicious. At one point, George tells her he can't breathe, and Sarah says, I can't breathe when you cheat on me. This is no doubt malicious. George is pushing the suitcase trying to get out, and Sarah is claiming she never zipped her up all the way. Sarah now realizes that she is in deep trouble. She keeps telling the police that she had never intended to fall asleep and that she thought he was crying wolf and asking to be let out later in the interview. They addressed the fact that one bottle of wine shared. It's not enough to be that drunk. So Sarah claimed that she wasn't drunk. She just fell asleep expecting him to come up soon. And Sarah's story just kept falling more and more apart as the police continued pushing her, addressing each of the flaws in her story. Sarah would continue to stand by her innocence, saying that it was not intentional or delicious. But eventually Sarah would be charged with second-degree murder, and her sentencing date is December 11th, 2023. This murder didn't take much to figure out. Sarah clearly had some pent-up anger issues, and with George Safili in the bag, so to speak, she got her power back and let her bitterness get the best of her. It's all about the motive and the motive behind this. Next crime is even more shocking. This is G with over 5 million followers in TikTok who still paid a price for his fame, but it's clear that he did not deserve to die. See, Gan was born in China, he was cheerful and friendly, and as he got older, he developed a drive to travel. He was so motivated that he would work hard and save up to achieve his goal. And before long, Gang was booking a ticket to Africa. It was the first continent of many that he hoped to visit. And while in Africa, he would try different foods in each country and loved the culture. He traveled all over African countries. But when he got to Zambia, he felt like it was home. It was the place he wanted to be. He fell in love with the people, the culture, the landscapes, and their food. And it wasn't long before he met Margaret, a local lady who would secure his life in Zambia. The two would make videos of the local hidden places to go, and both would explore the food types. This would grow not only their relationship, but also their views. At first, he started a vlog to keep a record of all the adventures he was having in Zambia. But the more he shared, the more he realized that his adventures were not only well received, but he was now offering a sneak peek into the life that most people could only dream of. So he created a TikTok account called Fatty Goes to Africa, which gained more and more views daily. He was always clean, fun, and friendly in every post, and most of his viewers were from China. The more places Gan covered, the more views he would gain, which again led to better pay. And so Gan's TikTok became his main source of income, and since he loved what he did, Gan became very good at it and handled his fame with grace. He never deviated from his clean, fun demeanor, and people could always count on his posts to be interesting, upbeat, and entertaining. As he was now living in Zambia, he got to know the other Chinese residents. Most were influencers themselves, and this led him to connect with all of them. He would involve them in his adventures, and he would feature, and there's Gan was earning a great deal of money from his media, and was turning over his footage to professionals to upload and manage his content. The Chinese group would become a success in the work they did, and they all fit in well, apart from one man. Fang Xingyang, his persona always came across as very awkward, and perhaps a bit more darker in nature. He didn't really fit in with the fun, happy, and lively group that had now formed. For most, it was rather obvious. But Gan, as head of the group, didn't seem phased, which kept him in the group. Can and Fang had even developed a good friendship, and he would try to encourage Fang, and it seemed as though there were no problems between the two. However, regardless of the fact that Fang had the opportunity to learn and grow within the group, he stuck to his own content, which was dull, awkward, and very bland. At best, the elephant in the room was that Fang's following numbers dwindled while Gang's views were growing rapidly daily, and so soon the tension between Fang and the rest of the group grew, and Gan had to make the call to let Fang go. Fang and Gang had stayed friends, but jealousy makes you ugly, and sadly Fang allowed his jealousy of Gang to consume him. And finally, in 2022, New Gang and Fang were no longer as close as they had been. It was clear that Fang's personality was not a good fit for Gang. Gang had actually gone back to China to see his friends and family. F claimed he had asked Gang to buy him a phone in China and had given him the money for the phone, which was the equivalent of about $11,400. He also claimed that not only did Gang not buy the phone, but he also didn't pay him back. Although it affected Gang's followers, Gang held his ground, kept to his happy, fun demeanor and ignored the claims. He didn't let it bother him, but this would only fuel Fang's jealousy. And soon Fang was aiming all kinds of accusation to Gang. One claim was that Gang had sent him COVID-19 infected food, and another was that Gang had sent his crew to trash his home. Fang was living in the time and Gang was still in Zambia. These were just baseless accusations, but this was growing into something so big that Gang had no choice but to post that the accusations were not true and they had nothing to do with it. He also set the record straight, saying that he had not received the request for a phone or the money for the phone. Gang hoped this would put an end to the rumors, but Fang only pushed in further with more accusations. But at the time, Gang wanted to get on with his life. Everything was going great, and he wanted to pop the question to Margaret and buy her an engagement ring. Margaret, of course, said yes, and the two continued with their lives with a new hope and prospect of their future together. Of course, Gang would continue to do content, and this all meant he still needed and wanted to travel. Eventually, Gang decided that he would take a few friends to the pool, as it's right next to the border of China, and had the potential for many amazing adventures on TikTok. There was new food, and a totally deep and rich culture. It was a trip G was, look forward to, and as they walked the streets boring the food, one of these friends actually mentioned the Fang lived in the pool, and Gang responded quickly, "Yes, I know, I have come to beat him up." It was a fun and sarcastic response. It was a way of making light of a dark situation, but sadly this was the tipping point for Fang. Fang hit the streets in search of Gang, and when he found him, he took his revenge while Gang was still live streaming. At first, it didn't seem real thing, just went right up to him and stabbed him in the chest, his back, his abdomen, and in the head. One of Gang's friends quickly tried to stop Fang, but Fang then turned the knife on him, stabbing him in the stomach to defend Gang. The friend then retreated and ran away with blood pouring over him, and the third friend would try to run away before he got stabbed too. Gang then collapsed in the streets while live streaming, and you can hear him screaming clearly in shock. Then his feed went blank. All the while, the people of the streets either scattered in fear or stayed on and filmed what was left of Gang's life. On one recording, you can clearly see Fang hanging around, cursing Gang in Chinese and waiting for Gang to die. Gang was asking for help by pointing at their phone, but no one reacted. Finally, the one uninjured friend returned to the scene, and upon seeing Gang in a bloody mess, he quickly called the police. By the time the paramedic got there to help, it was too late for Gang. He had lost so much blood. And even though they did take him to the hospital, he was announced dead on arrival on December 4th, 2022. The friend who got injured by Fang was able to assist in the police's investigations and would make a full recovery. Fang was arrested for the murder, and what was very obvious to the police was his lack of regret. He was proud of his revenge and made no apology for it. Fang actually stood his ground and said it was self-defense, as Gang had sent his crew to trash his home. However, this was never proved, and was by no means a reason for murder. So Fang would receive a 25-year prison sentence for the murder of Gang. But this would not bring back the fun, leaving his followers and Margaret's without Gang, and it seemed at one point that Fang had actually been released, and followers wanted answers here. However, after a further investigation into this, it was confirmed that Fang is still in prison, serving his sentence. The family would post one last TikTok. For Gang, it was a sad and final closure to what Gang had Cree his followers would grieve as much as Gang's family, as he was well loved amongst the Chinese audience. Gang's friendship with Fang proved to be fatal in the end, and it leaves you wondering how different things would have been if he'd never met Fang in the first place. Now the next two videos don't really seem to have that much depth for them. Here's a video of a Romanian man who's doing a typical cringy TikTok dance, and a few minutes later he posts a video of him walking through his house showing it all off, ending the video with just a little chuckle. Now, if you came across these two videos, you'd probably skip past them, but behind the scenes, something horrific had just taken place. But before we go into what's actually happening here, we need to go a few months back now. The person dancing in this video goes by the name Kusal Jandi. He and his close friend Mohammed had been sitting in a car driving around. They had constantly been working together to figure out a way that they could become rich quickly. They knew that having a regular job getting paid the average Iranian salary was never going to get them anywhere they wanted to be rich, have Lamborghinis, go to the finest restaurants, fly first class around the world, and they wanted to do it soon to enjoy their life before they got too old to never enjoy their money. And they also knew that a random business course was never really going to do it for them, so they figured that the best way to do it was through this. Lady Milu Kamlu was a 71YY old lady who frequented a local restaurant named Yasim Sham. She was a social butterfly, Ahmet Al-Jundi, who was 25 at the time, while dining one day. This sweet old lady had many friends and was loving and caring, but she was also very naive and vulnerable, and after many conversations, Al-Jundi would soon realize that this social butterfly wasn't just your regular old lady. Louise owned two North London properties. The first was a 1.3 million house in Barnet, and the other was a shop with 3 flats in Wyson, the same area as the Yasim Sham restaurant. These two properties put food on the table for Louise as she ran to them out. But when Louise met Al-Jundi, he seemed to come across as a very well-connected man, an ambitious man as well, and Al-Jundi explained to her that his girlfriend Maria was also a millionaire, allowing him to have some leverage, and gave the woman a reason to talk to him. He also appeared to own 2 cars, and he had started a strong friendship with Lisa, and she, being a social butterfly, was just happy to have a new friend now. Over the first few months of their friendship, Alendi wanted to learn how her and her family made so much money. He thought by connecting with a millionaire, he would also become rich himself. And so Al-Jundi began dropping some enticing seeds, where he'd soon mention his interest in some local properties, and eventually stated that he would like to buy her houses, using his own assets and his girlfriend's financial means. And to Louise, this was a very exciting opportunity. He'd eventually offer £4.6 million for the 2 houses. And that meant Louise could settle her mortgage and provide 2 new homes for her sons, one of whom was disabled. The excitement of the opportunity gried El height. She never once stopped to question the legitimacy of Al-Jundi. They'd been friends for months, and she was only focused on how much the sale could benefit her family. Little did she realize that the person she was speaking to had no assets, and no rich girlfriend taking advantage of an overly trusting old lady. Alini managed to convince Louise to sign her properties over to himself as a gift in order to avoid paying property tax, to make it legal. But the lawyer's approach refused to assist, as it was clear that this would be to Louis's detriment, the lawyers advising Louise to take the normal route. But she trusted Alendi. They'd been friends for months, and she was desperate to help her to say son. However, whatever money was transferred to Alendi from Louise's bank was stopped, as the banking service also flagged the transfers as suspected fraud. This led Louise to lie to her own bank and make transfers to Al-Jundi regardless, and by mid-July 2021, Al-Jundi had everything he needed for Louise to sign for both houses in his name. But there was a catch. This time, Louise insisted that she meet the millionaire girlfriend before closing the deal, or she would never sign over these houses. It was at this point that OI took his deception to the next level. He and his close friend Mohammed, who worked as a delivery man for the restaurant he worked at, proposed a plan that would benefit them both. Al-Jundi arranged to meet Louise with the promise that Anna, his supposed girlfriend, would then join them at one of her houses to discuss and finalize the sale, so Louise happily obliged and pulled into the driveway, hoping that this lengthy sale would finally go through and she would be freed from this whole ordeal. As she walked into the house meeting with Al-Jundi and another whom she didn't know. Perhaps an attorney. They maybe spoke a little, but not long enough to question the whereabouts of Anna. Mohammed then sprang into action. He used a hairdryer cord and wrapped it around her neck. The shock rippled through Louise's body as she realized that she was not only outnumbered and outmatched strength-wise, but she had always been betrayed by the man she trusted the most. Within minutes, Louise Cam's body lay lifeless on the floor. Alini then felt a rush of adrenaline and elevated joy as his plan to obtain a home was now complete. The only last HDL was to remove the body and stage a pending holiday to cover their tracks. But they could sell the car and live off the profits. In the meantime, Al-Jundi and Mohammed then used a mobile wheelie bin to put Louise's body in, which they had wrapped up in a duvet. Mohammed and Al-Jundi actually took the time to make a TikTok of themselves dancing, boasting about the house, and mocking the wealth of Louise just minutes after her murder took place. Which makes this video just so horrifying when you know the context of it. And it was after this video that Alini then used a cell phone and messaged to select few people stating that she was going on vacation. However, the messages were very cryptic and really didn't sound like Louise. The two left the house, taking Louise's black BMW with them all within 20 minutes of just meeting her. The car was then sold, and the money was used to buy new clothes. Alendi told mutual friends that Lisa had taken his money and left the country. Al-Jundi then arranged to collect the wheelie bin and have it stored at his family home, where it was later found by police, who had been on his tail all this time. The DNA on a glove and a plastic bag in the bin that was linked to Alendi and Louis' blood was then found on Mohammed's jumper that he wore that day after the family was suspicious enough, and the police found this evidence. Al-Jundi and Mohammed would quickly be captured, with the judge sentencing both to 35 years of life in prison, with the court claiming that this sentence had no bearing on who took Louise's life, as both went with the full intention to kill her. The judge further stated that what they did was purely out of greed. Louise's son were left in a stage of disbelief that their mother was put in a rubbish bin, which was the height of disrespect. And as the judge set the 35-year sentence, both Al-Jundi and Mohammed would cry tears, shed far too late in the following video. You'll see a girl known as Kalisa Williams, also known as Pinky. You can see in the video that while Pinky is filming her video, she ends it off by rushing to the camera as she's distracted by something. Little did Pinky ever realize that this would be her last video ever made, and that her thousands of followers were about to witness something from a horror movie. But to understand why, we first need to look at who Keisha Pinky Williams actually was. Pinky was a typical Gen Z 16-year-old girl who found fame on TikTok. She lived in Atlanta, Georgia, and attended South Atlanta High School with her boyfriend named K.I. Brown. Now, Pinky really didn't stand out for most people. She was just a normal high school girl. There was nothing particularly special about her or anything weird about her. She just lived her normal life like any other 16-year-old girl. But because she felt unseen living just like the others, she would use TikTok as a way to express herself in the midst of the pandemic. Pinky would post daily videos dancing to the latest trends, and gradually grew her audience. And while she started gaining a TikTok following, she would be supported by her parents, April Smith, and her stepfather, Romney Sevoy. Both parents wanted the best for Pinky. They knew that she felt purposeless at high school, and they wanted her to explore her dreams with passion, making the best of her life. They truly believed that one day she would become an influencer for a living, and her parents would make sure that Pinky's dreams came true. And as Pinky continued her normal life, Christmas would eventually roll around. And while Pinky was enjoying her Christmas breakfast, her best friend Infinity, called Infinity, sounded super excited and invited Pinky to a party taking place downtown. However, when Pinky approached her parents with this, they were a little hesitant. A party 30 minutes away on Christmas Eve. It wasn't exactly how they'd imagined the day would go, but Infinity's parents offered to pay for an Airbnb to stay for the night, and the two promised that the party was for girls only. Infinity's mom even said she'd supervise and that there were no boys allowed, which seemed perfect for a 16-year-old high school student who just wanted to have a girls' night out. As Pinky begged and begged her mom to go, Pinky's mom's mind started to change. She knew that Pinky didn't have that many friends. She'd had a horrible long year of COVID restrictions and knew that this would be one of the only parties she had the entire year. So to make her daughter proud, she finally changed her mind and sent her daughter off to the party. But Pinky and Affinity had different plans for starters. The party was suddenly moved from an Airbnb to the Hyatt Regency Hotel. Infinity's mom room 722 for the party at about 4:00 p.m. and took them to the hotel. She then weirdly left them all on their own, so the party was actually not supervised as she had promised to Pinky's mother. Red flags were starting to show, but nothing too weird. This just seemed to be a normal high school party. A few hours passed in 8 o'clock's truck, and Pinky's mother would call, and Pinky would reassure her mother that everything was just fine, forgetting to mention that she was now in a hotel and that Infinity's mother wasn't there to supervise. She only mentioned that the party had not started yet. Eventually, after a night out of debt parting, Pinky returned to her hotel room by midnight with Infinity, and while the two were talking, Infinity received a call and left the room, saying she was going to the front to meet others that were to join them for the party again. And this left Pinky all alone in the room. With the moment alone, Pinky would think this is probably the perfect time to get another video, and her passion was TikTok. And she was destined to become an influencer for a living, so why don't take the time to create another video? And so she started showing this video, and while filming the video twerking to the trending hit, A Lick Pinky ends the video very quickly. As she's interrupted, the video was uploaded to her TikTok account, suggesting that she did have a moment to finish uploading it. The video went live midnight on the 26th of December, and this date marked the last anyone ever saw or heard from Pinky, except one individual, and that person interrupting Pinky in this video was K.I. Brown, her boyfriend at the time. The two were talking when Kiri got a bit too frisky and tried to have sex with Pinky. Pinky was definitely not in the mood and pushed him away, but her boyfriend wasn't accepting no for an answer, and attempted, possibly in a drunken stew, to sexually assault Pinky. Now luckily, she was strong enough and managed to actually fight off her boyfriend, but this enraged her boyfriend, who then drew his gun out of rage, threatening Pinky. Now we don't know the details of this moment, but it seemed like Pinky resisted, until Kiri squeezed the trigger and shot her in her pelvic area. In retaliation, about 15 minutes after her TikTok video was uploaded, Infinity and Pinky's boyfriend were seen carrying Pinky's limp body off of the elevator, screaming for help. Kiss has been shot. Crying and praying that Pinky could survive this horrific moment, the two performed CPR and did their best to help as Pinky continued to try to grasp for air, but unfortunately it was too late. The gunshot caused Pinky to bleed internally, and paramedics declared Pinky's death at 12:23. It was only 8 hours later that anybody called Pinky's mother to inform her that her daughter had died, and it wasn't anyone from the party who called. It wasn't Infinity's mother, or even the paramedics, who was the Maury Pinky's mother, hadn't even realized that the party was moved and just cried out in pure horror at the news. The police then took Infinity and Pinky's boyfriend to the station for questioning, where the boyfriend quickly admitted fault, confessing that he had shot Pinky, explaining that he never intended to kill her and that he completely lost control of himself due to the alcohol. He would serve only 1 year in prison for this incident, a very small payment for taking the life of this 16-year-old girl.